Hi there, Dallas Center. This is Julie Becker, running for mayor of Dallas Center, also known as Miss Becker for my 10 years of teaching high school chemistry and physics, which gave me a good feel for numbers and understanding whether or not something seemed reasonable based on the data that was provided. And for those of you not aware, our city property tax collections in Dallas Center over the past 4 years have increased 46.9%. And off the top of my head, that just doesn't strike me as a reasonable increase given all the variables involved in our taxes. One of the variables that comes into play that has been mentioned by even our county treasurer, Mitch Hamilton, is that because your property evaluations have increased, your taxes have increased. Now, this is just very misleading, almost to the point of being a lie. Just because your valuation on your property increases does not mean your city property taxes or your county property taxes have to increase. There's a safety valve to account for those years where valuations go up. And that safety valve is known as the city property tax rate, which the city council controls. So when valuations go up, they can bring back the amount of tax collected by lowering the city property tax rate. And this they should do, because just because your investment in your home, which is your investment, becomes a good investment, doesn't necessarily mean you should have to pay more property taxes. That's just a fallacy they want you to believe so they can collect more from you and make you think that, hey, I didn't do it. Not on my watch. I didn't collect more property taxes. It was your house going up in value. Not the case. Not the case at all. So even though valuations did go up, this didn't have to happen. City Council has a safety valve to offset any valuation increases, which they should utilize. The second thing that could affect this is the growth. Dallas Center has grown. And I will concede we've had some growth. I will not concede that we have grown 46.9% in the last 4 years. So you have to find, well, what would have been reasonable for the amount of growth that we've had? And in my book, if we have grown, it becomes the burden of the city to share with us the amount of growth that has occurred for their collecting this much additional property tax, which they have not done. That's not the transparency thing they do in Dallas Center. If this was reasonable, they should have got right on it and said, hey, 46.9% like in Waukee, hey, that's all new growth. Well, it's not all new growth in Dallas Center. In fact, it still isn't reasonable. I have a good idea what the estimate for this number should be based on even with our growth. And I'm not going to share that with you right now because council should know that, and they haven't shared it. And they are very reluctant to share any information about city property taxes or about anything with the public, especially if it might lead to the conclusion that maybe they were overspending or overtaxing the citizens of Dallas Center. They have all the data at City Hall. They have all the decision-making power. They should be providing these answers to the public, to the citizens of Dallas Center. They choose not to. They choose instead to take citizens who are concerned about these and hold them up to ridicule because they question this and then say, oh, she lied about that 46.9% increase in property taxes collections. No, she didn't lie about those 46.9% increase in property tax collections. You can find this 46.9%. This 46.9% increase in city property tax collections right off documents you receive from the government. Your property tax statement every year will verify and validate this number. That's where the chemistry, physics, number thing comes into play. I didn't have to get the numbers from the city. I could utilize a source more willing to share that information with me, and that source was my city property tax documents provided by the county. And that shows that this much collection has taken place. This is not a reasonable number. It's not close to a reasonable number. And the amount they collected is way far more than they should be collecting. And this needs to come into play because what are they supposed to be collecting each year if they choose not to justify why they've collected it? According to the state of Iowa, every year now, they are supposed to not exceed 2% increase without providing the public with a reasonable explanation as to why there was a 2% increase. This is not every year 2% increase. That's the max. They should shoot for something less than that. And why do I say that? Because this year, senior citizens on Social Security only got a 1.6% increase in their Social Security benefits. Their government too. 2% should be reasonable for what you're taxing your population, especially the most vulnerable in the population. So 2% max is what they should shoot for every year. This is reasonable to collect this much to account for any inflation that may be occurring. And oh, by the way, I'll even give it to council. If we were in a community where our population was decreasing, this number of tax collection would probably be lower than what's needed. And at that point, it would be within their power to raise the city tax rate to keep the collections to operate the city government at a level that we have established. And that level is based somewhat on our growth. Let's get rid of this. In conclusion, 46.9% increase in collected city property taxes is not reasonable for the past 4 years. The reason you're collecting more tax money from the citizens every year is because you are spending more. Spending more on non-essential and refusing to make the hard decision on even the essentials because it's not fair to tax the population excessively. What portion of your hard-earned money is the government entitled to? Each year increasing up to this much? Not reasonable, and they shouldn't be allowed to do it, and you should not give them a pass. You should demand new leadership in Dallas Center. Leadership that is going to shoot for no more than 2% increase every year, apart from the population increase growth factor. Otherwise, your council is just using the citizens as a cash cow to spend excessively, and that's just not fair. It's not what I would allow in city government, and it's not what you should allow in city government. Taxes need to get under control in Dallas Center. The citizens need to be told each and every year how much additional tax is collected because of growth and how much they are incurring because of spending excessively. And without doing that, they are keeping us in the dark and they are being non-transparent. And I have been fighting for transparency in our city government since day one. They don't want to be transparent because if you are transparent, you have to be accountable. And they don't want to be accountable. They just want to say, a lot of growth in Dallas Center, 46.9%. Your house went up in value, not our problem. All of these things are their problem. They control the city's purse, and they are accountable to the people who fill that purse. And that purse is you and me, and they serve us. Thank you. And think about your taxes when you go to vote, because this doesn't have to be the situation in Dallas Center. 46.9% increase in the next 4 years without the growth to show for it will be crippling on families in Dallas Center. Thank you.